So hello and welcome to part 2 of the Buddy Beta map series. For today's episode we're going to be focusing rather heavily on Old Bullworth Vale and Billy Train's Travelling Carnival. So without further ado, let's get onto the areas that are unlocked in chapter 2. Now surprisingly, Bullworth Vale has the least amount of map changes out the entire game, which is good, so let's get on with it anyway. So first of all, if you manage to escape Bullworth Academy in chapter 1, you'll find out the carnival is completely blocked off, and there are leftover files which even have the subtitles telling you can visit the carnival after you defeated Russell. And this is because, during development, it was planned for Jimmy to be able to leave school grounds after 3 PM, where he could explore the towns as much as he wanted until bedtime, which was likely reverted because it just seemed rather pointless and restrictive. Another leftover of this, kind of, is absolutely none of the shops in Bullworth Vale or Bullworth Town will be open until chapter 2 anyway, but if you use glitches to get to New Coventry before chapter 3 is unlocked, the final cut will be unlocked. Also, if you mod your way into the carnival in chapter 1, absolutely none of the games will be open. So inside Jimmy's Beach Club Safehouse, quite a few people have wondered about the 3 inaccessible doors. Well, there's nothing behind the doors, and like the other click challenges, the prep challenge was not going to be about boxing at all, but was going to be a 3-part mission, with the final part of the mission being Jimmy sort of welcoming himself into the Preppies Clubhouse and evicting them himself. Much like the finale versions of Grease's challenge and Townie's challenge. Now, this next area is going to be a bit of a weird one to cover, but it's called Underwater, and I covered this in a previous video, but the only reason I'm putting Underwater in Bullworth Vale's part is because the massive sea area that Jimmy can swim around is located here. Anyway, there's an area in the game's files that mention underwater being its own interior, which is rather unusual since it's impossible for Jimmy to dive underwater at all, and if you mod your way underneath the water, there reveals an empty void and nothingness, kind of akin to the sort of empty, what they call the empty pits you see in many 3D platforms like Spyro the Dragon. And unsurprisingly, if you do sort of glitch your way out the map and into one of these sort of areas, you get instantly knocked out. So this could imply that maybe there were other plants that Jimmy swim underwater, before being scrapped very early on. One of the only other remains of this are the drowning animations that can be remodded back in, or seen in the Buddy multiplayer mod. Now speaking of swimming, there's a broken file for a swim race that was going to take place on the beaches of Bullworth Vale, but loading it up crashes it instantly. The coordinates can be viewed however and tell us there were going to be 2 races planned, and it was going to put the massive sea area surrounding Bullworth Vale to good use. Interestingly, going frame by frame pre-crash shows a bike very quickly spawning underneath Jimmy before the game goes weirdly bright, then just, flat out crashes. This says to me that the game is trying to load up a model that just doesn't exist anymore. Anyway, let's move on to our good friend Tad Spencer and let's visit his house, because near Tad Spencer's house there's a garage which is never used, but no clipping in reveals that it might have been enterable at some point before it got scrapped, as you can see an outline of the interior barely. Now near Tad's house is a park, and while it's never really used in game except for lawn mowing, an errand and Revenge on Mr. Burton, there was going to be a scrapped Keep Ups minigame that was going to take place here. It's unknown why it was removed since it actually fits the location incredibly well, playing football in the park. Also near Tad's home is Mr. Hattrick's, and we can see from a very early model that Mr. Hattrick's house was going to be slightly different. We can see the upstairs of his home is slightly more detailed, and the roof here is, well, made of brick, and he also has more decorations around his house, like curtains in the window for example. Glitching inside Mr. Hattrick's house, we can explore his home, but it's clear Jimmy was never supposed to enter here as the interior is messy and its geometry is messed up pretty badly. Another odd thing in Bullworth Vale is the bus stop near the burger bar, as the bus arrives incredibly slanted, like the bus stop is clearly on a hill, and the bus's angle is just so wrong. This could imply that this area was going to be a bit different, or the bus stop existed elsewhere but was never fixed when moved. Likewise, as many people point out, on Buddy Anniversary Edition only, this isn't really a beta change but it's a bug, but for some reason the burger bar's textures are, well, take a look for yourself. So for some odd reason, the police station in Bullworth Vale, well, it was supposed to be a location for the deleted fireworks store. Well, one of them anyway, kind of like how the pizza parlour in New Coventry was also changed to be a police station too. Considering that both New Coventry and Bullworth Vale sort of had their police stations sort of built up off existing locations, it says to me that maybe Roxall were intending for just for there to be one police station, and that being in Bullworth Town. Anyway, for some reason Bullworth Vale has a few lights that just sort of float in midair and don't really do anything, and these can be seen near the Crab Restaurant, and for some odd reason on the PlayStation versions of Buddy at least, you can see floating lights. These are probably leftovers from deleted lampposts that also goes for the carnival. Speaking of deleted props, near the gazebo, you might see some stairs that sort of lead down to the Bullworth Vale beach. Well, originally there was going to be sort of like an arch over here. Nothing else to it. But speaking of more unused props, there's an unused snow barricade that can be seen in Bullworth Town if you decide to play a deleted Chapter 3 mission, which is, as mentioned, near Bullworth Town's motel, which spawns these snow barricades which are going to be used in the snowball fight deathmatch minigames. But of course, Bullworth Motel is near New Coventry and nowhere near Bullworth Vale, so what's it got to do with it? Well, that's because the area near Uckleberry was going to be a location for one of these snowball fighting minigames. So now let's move on to the Carnival area again. So regarding the Carnival, there's an unused model for the tickets that Jimmy actually buys. They're never ever seen, since once the player buys the tickets they get added straight to the player's inventory and the gates just open automatically. Well, not open automatically, but you know. Possibly hinting there was going to be some kind of giving animation like when Jimmy gives somebody money or a gift or whatever. Now, despite being removed from the PC version, the multiplayer interiors for the Carnival minigames can still be explored via modding. But as you can probably guess, there's not much really here, since these were never ever intended to be used for single player use, or even exploration. These also go for the photography minigames too, such as the auto shop and the comic book store in Bullworth Town. But they're still interesting to look at, however. The Carnival was also going to hold more go-kart races, having at least 2 more different tracks. One of these was going to be a secondary outdoor track, and another one was going to take place indoor on an indoor track. Sadly, the only remains of this are a cut music track from the second go-kart track. God, I'm saying track a lot. But yeah, and a leftover interior ID for the indoor one. But probably the biggest area in the Carnival that has the most changes is the Funhouse, because interestingly the Funhouse has a lot of unused props that we're going to be decorating the place over, some of which could be interacted with. These include a painting that Jimmy could rotate that implies it might have been set in the maze area to open or close doors. These also imply that maybe the doors didn't have buttons initially, and instead Jimmy had to sort of find his way through the maze by rotating different paintings. The second one is a ghost. No, before you get excited, it's not a real ghost, it's just some crappy ghost puppet that just floats about. There's also a model for ghost doors, possibly hinting that the ghost may have popped out of these in a, possibly hinting that the ghost may have just popped out of these in a rather lame attempt at a jump scare. And there's also an unused lid for a coffin, likely the one that Jimmy climbs out of when he enters the graveyard area. Another bit of cut content is there are going to be completely different music tracks for every different section of the Funhouse. But you'll normally never hear these, as the track for Funhouse Fun just completely plays over them. Now, one of these was actually lost media, as it was an exclusive track for MTV's Urge Music service and was erased from the game files and never re-brought back in future album releases. But yeah, here's a sample of all the unused tracks. So that's it for the Bullworth Vale beta changes. There aren't many, but thankfully the rest of the series is chock full of changes that most fans will enjoy. Well, I hope you do anyway. So yeah, thank you for watching this episode of the Buddy Beta map series, and have a great day.